Good afternoon.
Hi.
This is the episode of the Ronald Schoenberg story called Feeling Fluey. And we dedicate a whole episode to Feeling Fluey because Ronald Schoenberg, or Old Dads, or Umpa, spends much of his life feeling fluey. What percentage would you say do you spend feeling fluey?
Well, I know that when O.J. Simpson was asked how he pled, he said he was 150% not guilty. And I think that's about, no, I guess he was only 100% not guilty, which means he was still 50% guilty. It seems like my whole life, it seems like I'm more likely to get the flu than anybody I know. That I get the way you tell what flu is coming or virus is coming into the area, you go over to my house and you see that I already have it, or if you want to know which one is just left, I still have it. At work even, I used to say I'd be sick and then I'd say I'll be coming in tomorrow, I'm sure I'll be better, and I would do that for about 7 or 8 days in a row and then finally give up. But one thing about being sick, I was always very good in school, in grammar school and high school, and usually I led the class in academically, but I was always very far ahead of the class in absences, and that was because of my propensity to get these viruses and flus, among other things. I have not only the flus, I had other illnesses and injuries too while I was young and up until now. I think I had every childhood disease, except maybe mumps. I may not have had mumps. I had pneumonia a couple of times, tonsillitis, of course, appendicitis. In fact, there's an interesting story about the appendicitis, and there's a letter by my father where he writes his daughter, his Trudy, about my sickness. And what happened was, this was when I was under 5 years old, just about 5. I had these marks all over my body, and the doctors came and they couldn't figure out what it was. And one said it was measles, and one said it was chicken pox. And they finally decided that it was both measles and chickenpox that I had at the same time. All the while I was complaining that my stomach hurt, Bauchweh, and that hurt me a lot. And finally they realized that I not only had measles and chickenpox, but at the same time I had appendicitis. They rushed me down to the hospital to operate, and I have sort of a vague recollection. I have recollection of a lot of things from there, but I do have recollection of being driven down to the hospital, and then they took me to Queen of Angels Hospital, and then they found out, they had me laid out to operate, but then they found out that I had a contagious disease, so they kicked me out, and they had to take me to the general hospital where I stayed. And I have some of the memories I have of being in general hospital are not too good. For instance, I remember that the nurse told me that if I didn't eat all my food, my parents they wouldn't let my parents see me. Jeez. And I couldn't eat all the food, and so my parents didn't see me that day, although I was told later by my mother that they saw me every day. So it was probably some hallucination that I had. Maybe the whole thing was a dream. I also remember that when I was in the hospital there, I had these blocks. It was like a game. It was a face, and it was made up of 6 or 9 blocks, and you could change one block, and that would change the face somewhat. And I really liked that, but they wouldn't let me take that out of the hospital because you weren't allowed to take things out for some reason. I guess you would take the contagious disease with you or something, I'm not sure. Also, I remember that in those days they had clamps on your wound from the operation, and the doctor would take those out before you leave. And of course that hurt a lot, and I screamed, and he said that if I stopped screaming, he would let me have the appendicitis and be able to take it home.
Oh.
I kept screaming.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of memories from that, which is sort of strange, I guess, from when you're so young, but I can remember those things very vividly. Other sicknesses.
Didn't you, when you were born, you had some diseases?
I had impetigo, which
Okay.
I don't know how bad that was or not, but I was told I had impetigo. I had a lot of nosebleeds, and they hindered me. One time I was playing with Tommy Freiberg in the semifinals of the Westerns, and we were playing against Max Brown and somebody, and my nose started bleeding terribly. And luckily, Max Brown was getting so mad at his partner that he threw the match sort of, or didn't play very well. Otherwise, we would have lost, but I just stood up at net and let Tommy play the whole court for the match. But then I had to spend the night in the infirmary because they couldn't they couldn't get it to coagulate. And then I came out the next day to play my semifinal match against Mike Green with cotton up my nostrils.
Oh, jeez.
And I had to breathe through my mouth. What other sicknesses? Well, you name the sickness and I probably have had it.
Okay, well, we can start from the bottom up, so let's talk about your cruddy toes.
My toes? Well, first my whole feet. When I used to play tennis at Notre Dame, I can remember my feet hurting so badly afterwards that I couldn't walk back. My toes are just, the toenails are in very bad shape, which I probably got from my mother. A lot of people have that fungus, and I couldn't get rid of it. But that's not uncommon. It's just another one of those things that I have. I would show them to you.
It's pretty disgusting. And then you commonly get cramps, like leg cramps and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's common
cramps.
too. That I get in my toes cramps and leg cramps. I got for a while.
Back cramps.
But I'm actually, with all this complaining, if we're talking about now, I have a lot of little things, but I'm probably in better shape than most of the people I know. I feel pretty well now. I'm still able to play tennis, so I can't complain too much.
Oh, that's pretty good. Better than Mom. Okay, and then you want to show. You also had your gallbladder removed. So, would you like to show us your scar?
I've got scars there. The gallbladder. I was one of the last people, I think, to have it before they started doing it. What do you call that? With a
laser
smaller
surgery.
scar with laser. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I went to Cedars and George Wagner did it for me, but they asked me. I asked them about that, having it done laser, and they said, yes, you could do it laser, and you'd be the first one here to have it.
Oh.
So I decided to go the regular way, but I have, and that I don't know what it's called either, when you keep your scars. I have a huge scar from that.
You gonna show it to us?
No,
You
it's
used to
over.
show it.
And I also have I have the appendix scar too, and I have a scar from when I broke my arm too, which happened when I was around, I must have been around 7 or 8, playing at my neighbor's house, and the dog came up and knocked me down. He had a very wild dog, and we couldn't report it. My father was alone at home, and he had been sick for a while, so we were afraid to tell him that. And we had to wait till my mother got home, which was a long time. It took the whole afternoon. I was sitting there, and the neighbors kept calling my father to find out if my mother had come home and wouldn't tell him what it was about. And then finally they took me to the doctor. The doctor had already left, and there was one doctor there in the office who wanted to go home very quickly, set the bone, and then told me to hold it. I guess there was no nurse there, which of course I didn't do, and it snapped back out of place. So they had to set it a second time, at which time, the first time it wasn't so bad because you didn't know what was coming. But the second time you knew the pain that was going to come.
Oh, God.
So it was pretty bad, and my mother fainted too.
Oh, jeez.
Only time I ever saw her faint.
Oh, God. So, speaking of arms, you also had that tennis elbow or like cruddy elbows for a long time.
Yeah, the cruddy elbows aren't bad anymore. That's sort of gone away. That's just the.
But you had it so bad once that I remember you went to the hospital for like 2 weeks because your arm swelled up.
No, that was completely different.
That was? Okay.
That was my
Thought it was
arm
from itching
swelled
your
up.
elbow.
I either got bitten by some bug or bee or spider or some animal, or somehow I got my upper arm just started swelling terribly in the middle of the night, and I started getting a temperature, and then Barbara took me to the hospital, and that was very interesting, the whole thing. They took me there and they said, oh, you've got an infection, and I thought they'd just give me something and let me go, but they gave me a shot, and then they hooked me up to, what do you call it? IV, and kept me there for a week. And that was very interesting because I was right next to the nurses' stand, and I really saw how dedicated the nurses were, because they weren't aware that anybody was listening in on them probably when they changed duties, and the new nurse came on, and they went over everybody's charts very carefully, and I was very impressed by that. But I was very surprised that they kept me in for such what seemed. I seemed perfectly okay, except I needed to sleep a lot, and because of the IV, I guess it was, that they kept me in there for a week. The one thing that worried me a little was I was a judge at the time, and we had this fund among the judges that if somebody died, they would send flowers to the wife or next of kin, you know, and we with condolences. And with me, they sent me some flowers or something. So I thought maybe they knew something that I didn't know about my illness.
Yeah. I think it was pretty scary. I remember your arm was just gigantic. It swelled up huge.
Yeah, but we knew what it was, and it didn't really hurt. I just was just sleeping and tired the whole time, which I usually am.
And then more recently, you had some weird lung thing. Do you remember what that was called? It was some kind of weird pneumonia or something like that.
Yeah, I forget the exact name, but it's something like pseudo-pneumonia or something. They took a long time. The antibiotics don't help, and they keep. I remember the doctor kept giving me different antibiotics to try to fix it. And finally, after about a year, I went to a specialist, very nice doctor, and he said, you've got this something like pseudo-pneumonia, false pneumonia or something. At any rate, it doesn't, antibiotics don't help it. So you can take, what athletes take but aren't supposed to.
Steroids.
Steroids. You could take steroids, but there's so many side effects of that. You're probably better off just waiting it out, which is what I did, and got okay after.
But it took like 3 years, right?
Pardon me?
It was like 3 years long or something.
Yeah, it took about a year or so. It took a long time to get rid of it.
Yeah. Okay. And so, do you have any other ailments?
I have lots of ailments.
Yeah.
I could go on for long past, up until my 85th birthday. I could go on my ailments, and then by then I would develop some other ones. My eyes are one of the things that bother me now. I have glaucoma, and I also have double vision, which I guess it's better than no vision, but sometimes it isn't good to see double.
Yeah.
It doesn't help my tennis, my volleys. I blame my bad volleys now on my combination eye problems. I've had some other eye problems too, but when things are regular, I see 20/20.
Yeah.
So I can see you perfectly.
But after you had the surgery,
Pardon me?
You had the eye surgery, so you can see 20/20.
I had a lot of things for my eyes, yeah.
And then your nose, you have rosacea on your nose.
Yeah, I started getting that about 3 years ago. I asked the doctor about it, and I said, I've got this reddening, it's like rosacea. And he said, yes. And I said, and that was it. It was as diagnosis and treatment. There's not much
Okay.
you can do for it.
Red nose. Okay, so unless you think of other ailments you want to discuss, we'll go into the preventative medicine section of our interview.
Yeah, well, let me just.
Go ahead.
There's nothing else I want to discuss, but I'm sure
We
there'll
can
be
come
some
back.
things coming up
That's
in
fine.
the next few years if you want to come back to this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so to start off the preventative
I didn't
medicine.
mention my hyperemesis, not hyperemesis,
Acid reflux.
my acid reflux,
Yes,
which
that's
I've had
one.
since I was about 15. Almost anything I eat, except the blandest of foods, causes this what do you call it?
Vomiting. Terrible acid reflux.
Yeah, acid reflux. I rarely vomit. Once in a while I will, but most of the time it's just a really bad feeling in my throat. And
From eating sweets and stuff.
eating sweets or spicy food or almost anything but the blandest of food or fatty food.
Yeah.
When I'm exercising and my weight's down, then I'm less likely to get that. But that does bother me quite a bit.
Wow.
And at first, when I first told the doctors about it, they always said, "Oh, that's nothing. You don't have anything." And then I stopped complaining about it. And then after many years, I did again. And the doctor said, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" And so now I take some of these pills, but they don't seem to help too much.
You take it regularly?
Yeah, every day I do.
Oh, okay. Okay. So to start off our preventative medicine, I just wanted to show if you could demonstrate your flexibility. I'd like to see you touch your toes. Can you stand up and touch your toes?
I can touch my toes even without standing up,
All right.
but certainly not with standing up.
Okay, stand
You
up.
really want me to stand
Yes,
up
I
and
want
show?
a demonstration.
What? I only go this far.
Yeah, that's Dad touching his toes.
But that's,
It's been like that for many years.
I've always
And
been,
yet somehow
yeah, I've always
he
had
stays
that.
in great
I
shape.
figure it's good
Plays
for your
tennis.
tennis, because you probably don't make the mistakes that you otherwise would make if you were more limber. People think that it's better to be limber, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's
surprising.
universally true.
Yeah, so there's some other untruths that you have. For example, your thoughts about shampoo and your psoriasis. You have a dandruff problem, I know, and psoriasis, but you
I don't
You
have
have-
dandruff. Oh, you mean in my hair?
yeah, but you
No, not on my head that
you have
much.
some theories about shampoo.
No, I just never shampooed my hair. I wash my hair. I mean, I get water on it, and
Yeah.
I shower daily. But I don't use soap or shampoo on my hair.
And look at that.
I don't think
almost
it's necessary or good
a
or
nice,
useful.
pretty full head of hair for a
And I still
almost
have I still have
80-year-old
most of my hair, and it's
doesn't use
it's
shampoo
gray now,
ever.
but it wasn't gray a few years ago.
Yeah, it's impressive. And your most famous quote, health quote, is I don't know if you can think of it, but you say it often, and it's about the sun. Do you know that quote about the sun?
Oh, the sun is your enemy. Yes.
Yeah.
I always told you kids that the sun is your enemy. Of course, when I grew up, we always thought that the greatest thing was to go in the sun and go to the beach and get as much sun as you can and tan, and you wouldn't even worry about a burn. You wouldn't want to get a burn, but you wouldn't worry if you did. So the sun is your enemy, sleep is your friend, and it's something I've practiced through my life, at least the second part. I'm very good at sleeping.
Yeah.
I can fall asleep. In fact, for a while I had this, I guess what people get, where I would just have to go to sleep. When we had parties, I would fall asleep and things like that. But I don't do that anymore, but I still consider sleep my friend.
Well, on New Year's Eve, tend to go to bed.
Well, New Year's Eve is quite, this is more or less a moral thing. I think rather than stay up until 12, 1 o'clock on New Year's Eve after eating a heavy meal and drinking to excess? Is it any fun to wake up the next morning, you're in your new year, with a hangover or at least feeling bad with a headache or drowsy? I think it's much nicer to go to bed at 10 o'clock, which I often do on New Year's Eve, and then wake up in the morning bright and early and ready to go in the new year.
Okay.
I've tried to teach that to my kids, but I have not been successful.
Yeah. And then we can end this, unless you have other thoughts. We can end our interview on your favorite foods that you recommend for good health, the ones that you like to cook.
Oh, that. Well, I thought you were going to say the hot dogs that I make for the little kids.
Well,
so
yeah,
they
you do
eat,
that.
but that isn't what you meant. You probably mean when we have celebrations and feasts, New Year's, Christmas, birthdays. We have a number of very good cooks in the family who pride themselves on making a great meal, but it seems that I always steal their thunder with my favorite contribution to the meal, which is brown and serve rolls. And there's a secret of making them. The chef always has a secret, which I will let you in on now, and that is you not only brown the rolls, these ready-made rolls, where there's not too much to do, you not only brown them on top, but before you brown them, you open them up, you put butter on top, but you also cut them in half and insert a small slice of butter, which melts, of course, when they're making it. And these usually, well, nowadays it's Zoran who makes a tremendous meal and is completely upstaged when his children and others go first to my brown and serve rolls and clamor for more, rather than eat his well-prepared, whatever specialty he has brought out from the near or far east or west or south or north.
And the two other foods that you like to make that are also good for when you're feeling fluey are postage stamps and Jell-O. Would you like to describe any hidden secrets on those, or?
Jell-O is a very underrated food, and really it should be required food eating, required dessert for a regular day. I think it's a delicious food, and I think maybe it's got a bad reputation because it's served at the hospitals, which should let people know that it's an important nutrient.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow Jell-O, what could be better than yellow Jell-O, except maybe lime Jell-O, I don't know. Anyway.
And postage stamps? Where did that come from?
Well, that comes really from my father, who used to make us toast with butter and jam and cut the toast into little pieces and call them postage stamps. But I can't claim full credit for that.
'Cause you used to make those for us when we were sick, I remember.
I didn't really remember that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. When
you
we
mean
were
that with butter
when we
and
were
jam on top, you mean, or honey?
or just I think just butter. When we were feeling fluey, you'd make us postage stamps. Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that. Okay, I think we've done a good job here. Do you have anything else to contribute?
My mother, as a matter of fact, would make, when you talk about making when you're sick,
Yeah.
it was, maybe that's why I was so sick, because it was the one time when my mother was really nice to me was when I was sick, and she would make these special cookies. I can't remember whether they were 10, 20, 30, or Myrba-type cookies, but they were, I think we even called them sick cookies that she would give us at that time, and I really enjoyed that.
So you were sick on purpose, so you get the cookies.
So maybe I would get the cookies or the love, the showing of affection.
Okay.
This is a case for Dr. Braverman and the psychiatrist,
That's right.
psychoanalyst.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it?
Yeah, unless you have something more to contribute, that's all. I think
Okay.
we covered a lot of ground.
Okay.